Yes.
There's one cheers, so that our bench. This is one. No, there's not. No, sorry. Yes, it is.
I'm going to call this meeting to order. It is 9:03. Have any additions or deletions?
Do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Please speak up, please.
Yep. No additions or deletions to the agenda. It's recording.
No, adding people.
Gotcha.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
That works over.
Like to make a motion to approve the minutes for November 18th and 26th.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're gonna have to I made a motion to table the 9th. I wasn't there for that meeting and therefore cannot. All right, we need to look at payroll.
So. Okay.
So this is a payroll warrant for $5,701.59.
Maybe on Saturday. Cool. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, and the warrant is for $2,125.23.
Okay, I can make a motion to accept the bills and time sheets.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. We're moving on to discussion of the review and the draft budget.
Yes. Alright. So last meeting, I apologize for losing my temper, getting up and walking out. But, well, I will, this is part of the thing, that was part of the Selectboard meeting. So. Should we just go to the speed draft?
Yes. Okay,
Okay, so, revenue.
can we ask you, have you looked over these things and have you found anything new?
We sent you an email a while ago.
You sent me an email?
Steve did. Steve, you sent an email to him.
Yes, we saw that email, we saw
Okay,
that.
so go in.
Yeah, we saw that, yes. And we do have that email and we shared it with our crew, our other members of the board and also the treasurer and also the assistant treasurer.
So I'm actually reviewing that email, going through, making sure that, your suggestions were definitely pertinent. And there's several things that are kind of, I'm looking into. I have specifics if we want to discuss specifics about any particular issue. But overall, I think I can have a real, written response, available for the next budget meeting. Otherwise, we can discuss specifics right now, so with my findings. And if you, I'm sorry, so I am learning names on here, so just make sure you state your name so that I can have proper minutes.
Yes, Mr. Moulton.
Is there a new draft budget been produced lately?
So this copy right here is the most recent copy I made, it's available.
I think we all need copies. Yeah.
Everyone needs a copy. Okay, all right.
Can we start out with these two if you want to eyeball those things?
So, we have reductions in salaries and benefits. Stipends,
Yeah, I'm still. Yes.
Could you please highlight everyone?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, you're right.
Thanks very much.
thanks for the
Okay.
reminder.
We will do that.
Yes. My apologies for that. I think the next time that we're here, we're ready, it's all set. So, if you need a copy of the budget. Sure. Sure. There should be 6 pages. Make sure you have 6 pages in the copy. Great. Sure. Okay, like I said, there should be 6 pages. Everyone has 6 pages? Great. Fantastic. If anyone wants additional copies or scribble paper or anything like that.
Just to let you know, this is Kyle Roll. He was hired.
Yes, this is my 4th, 5th day.
Yes, and Kyle lives in Beresford, and Kyle has went through an extensive background investigation, and we've also gone for Kyle, just to let you know, he has a master's degree in public administration, and we're very confident in Kyle. He has rock off. So, welcome, Kyle. Thank you. Okay, let us begin.
So we have something about bars.
Yes,
Talk
so.
about what you have in your list.
Yes. According to. I've been in discussion now with several of the clerks and select board members of the other towns. And bars is going to be increasing their costs. We have a contract with bars for the end of this year, June 2025. Unfortunately, bars is going to be increasing their per capita fee. And the per capita fee right now stands at $15 per capita. And that fee, according to bars, is going to go to $25 per capita. Well, unfortunately, the feeling right now amongst the select board and clerks of the other participating towns is that there's not a lot of room for negotiation on the fee increase. Bars has provided us a copy of their budget. They're limited by salary and insurance cost increases as well. So other folks in the know, kind of the other treasurers and clerks have felt there's not a lot of room for negotiation on the budget. There is, however, room for negotiation on the members of the board of bars. Right now, it stands that all 5 towns participating in bars get 1 seat on the bars board. There is room for negotiation. There's a lot of folks out there who want bars to be represented from 1 person from each town, which would be a pretty significant increase. And so that seems to be kind of the direction of where the negotiations are going to be. Like I said, the contract is still being negotiated. Ferrisburg at least has met with bars and bars representatives, and I'm going to try and arrange a bars representative to speak at a select board meeting sometime in the next month or 2. To be able to discuss the increase a little bit more, but yeah, as it stands, that seems to be the increase. So that increase would put,
This is line 101.
yeah. So our actual we were budgeted for about $9,900 for fiscal year 25. The actual stand at $9,690. So pretty close. That was at the $15 per capita. If we're looking to increase that to the $25 per capita, and other towns have done that for budgeting purposes, including Ferrisburg, knowing that that is probably going to be the result, that brings us to a cost of $16,375, which is the 655 capital rate multiplied by the 25 per capita. That would be a $6,375 increase from what's currently budgeted. My recommendation would be that we bake that into our assumption about what's going forward, just so that we have that, and that just, like I said, that seems to be the state of the contract negotiations with bars.
Thank you.
I would agree.
Just, do we know when that negotiation is going to be completed?
This is an ongoing thing. We're going to meet with them, or Teresa and I are going to meet with them again in probably January to talk about it. So we're moving forward on it. But again, the problem is that we're really concerned about is there's a 5-member board, and they just want to have 1 town. And we think that's kind of a conflict because 1 town might feel have a different opinion. Now you're asking 5 towns to agree on 1 issue and 1 budget, and that might be slightly problematic. So if everybody has their own opinion, and we can actually direct this, and we can vote on things together as a group, basically what we're saying, they want the tail to be wagging the dog, and we're saying, no, the dog's gonna wag the tail.
I'm not following you.
Well, there's 5 members on the board. And they're gonna say, we'll take one of our members off, and we're gonna give you 5 towns 1 voice.
So
And we're-
all 5 towns get 1 person to represent
Yes,
all 5.
and what we're saying is, we want it the other way around. We wanna have 5 towns speaking, and we'll give you 1 voice. And so the towns will decide how to spend the money, where to spend the money, how we budget it, so we have better control of it. Because 8 years ago, we had no idea how they spent their money. They would never tell us, they would never give us any information at all. They just said, here's a bill, and we're going, where'd the money go, and how did it happen?
And they, the books,
I know it's none of your business.
yeah, the books weren't open to us. There was really no accountability, and so we're trying to change that paradigm.
And that seems to be the opinion of the other towns as well, that there seems to be an agreement that folks want, all town people, they want more representation on the board. So I think approaching it as a unified front will probably remove folks in the community.
And we're slowly going into a more kinder, gentler way, other than just basically saying to the philosophy, if you don't do this, we're gonna cut off your money. And then things will change. So we don't want to do that. So that's the plan.
So the 16,375 is the increase?
No.
That would be the total.
That's the
Yeah.
total, yeah, so it would be a based on FY 25, it would be a 6475 increase.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What else do you have other than that for, because you said you had a short list of other things to address, and then I have questions.
Sure, yeah, so this is kind of more responsive to the committee on the budget that
Okay,
developed this thing. So I have several things that I've looked into in regards to that. I can start at the top, I can deal with specific questions.
Just go ahead.
Okay, so basically, starting at the beginning of your document, and again, I thank you for your contributions. There's definitely a lot of really pertinent and valuable information here. So starting at the top of the document about the general confusion and accuracy of the estimates for the revenue lines, whether there's an annual payment from Green Mountain Power for the revenue generated at the solar array that's currently on Canyon Road. So I looked into that. No, the agreement that we had with Green Mountain Power was tied into what eventually became what they called the EVOL agreement, which included the updates to the town hall and town garage. Basically, in exchange for them putting the solar array there, they were going to give us a beneficial arrangement for the EVOL array, which was EVOL program. Now that did in fact happen, as well as the tax revenue that they pay, of course, for the solar array itself. So there isn't an annual payment as far as I can tell right now looking into this, but there was that payment or that agreement to basically help us modernize and upgrade our buildings. So, and that was pretty great. Under other revenue, the paving, I know that the line item there, you folks said should either be zero or removed. I'm in the process of checking with Rick Kuchar about that and discussing that with him. I haven't had a chance to sit down with him about that issue. Line 30, interest income. The committee's understanding that this includes interest from reserve accounts. If so, it should be removed from the general fund and added to the individual reserve account balance. Each reserve account should set up its own bank account. I've had the opportunity now in the last week to speak to several treasurers, to speak to NEMRIC, and to speak to several folks involved with the Vermont Municipal Treasurers and Clerks Association. The general consensus among almost every town is that most towns have one bank account. Usually it has a checking account, operating account, and what they call a sweep account, which basically allows the town to have an account that picks up transactions and then they keep each other in balance, basically. Currently, Hampton has 4 bank accounts. There are 2 money market accounts and there are 2 checking accounts. Only one of them is being really utilized. My goal is going to be to reduce those accounts to a single account, a single bank account for the town, which will include a checking account, operating account, and a sweep account, which isn't actually a separate account. It's terminology that the bank uses basically to be able to transfer money overnight and receive beneficial repo interest agreements that big banks take advantage of. That process is going to take at least a month or 2 to get into to make sure all the transfers are correct. But once that happens, accounting is going to be so much easier, and there's going to be much less in terms of the work for the town offices to manage and reconcile 4 separate bank accounts every month. And I think it's going to benefit us all. This is what Ferrisburg does, this is what Middlebury does, this is what Charlotte does, this is what NEMRIC recommends. And I spoke to, we had an extensive NEMRIC training yesterday. NEMRIC is the accounting or the software that we use to manage town finances, town information. And NEMRIC, she was the person who trained us, had been the treasurer at Rutland for many, many years. She also recommended having a single bank account. So we're going to make that transition over the course of the next month. In terms of the reserve accounts, having a separate bank account as reserve accounts, again, is not recommended by any of the treasurers or NEMRIC folks that I spoke to. Basically, NEMRIC allows us the capability to track internally those reserve accounts. And if the accounting is done correctly through our NEMRIC software, then we don't have to worry about reconciling individual bank accounts for reserve accounts. The reserve accounts will always be in one account, but NEMRIC will treat them as separate accounts in its own account. That's the recommended way that, again, NEMRIC, Ferrisburg, other towns in our area are doing it. I think that that's the smart way to do it, and I think, again, it's going to save us a lot of hassle, and it's going to save you folks on the budget committee or anyone else that's reviewing our budget a lot less hassle in terms of having to know that these accounts are going to be individually reconciled. Yes, please.
So.
I'm sorry, did you say your name?
My name is Diana Merrill.
I'm sorry?
Diana Merrill.
Diane.
Diane, yes.
Is the town clerk.
Oh, fantastic.
Treasurer.
So you'll be able to show any transfers in and out of those accounts and get accurate balance each time you report to the board.
Yeah, that's correct.
You'll always know what's in those funds.
Yes, that will appear on the transaction detail report, that will appear on the balance sheet, it will appear on any town report that we generate that will basically show, you know, the reserve account would be credited or debited, and the single bank account would be credited or debited for that, yes. Yep, and there would be town reports available that would show that, but they would all be drawing off the same thing. Yes, sir.
My only concern is there also needs to be an additional procedure to make sure you're not spending the money that is designated for those funds in the general fund or the budget, which is currently what is happening. So you need to make very sure you're not spending those monies in the general fund. We designated them for a specific purpose, and they need to be used for that purpose.
Absolutely, and that's definitely part of
That
it.
is not happening today.
I do understand that, having reviewed both the accounts and NEMRIC and taking a look at the budget, I understand that there's been some issues in that regard. My goal is to make this an easier process for all of us to understand, with less chance for error and less chance for folks to make mistakes or clerical errors, which you know are can happen, but we want to avoid that. So I think simplifying this is going to make our life a lot easier.
Steve Weber,
Yes.
just wondering how the reconciliation of those accounts will occur. There's been monies that have been spent in the general fund. How are those funds going to be made whole, if you will?
Sorry, I'm taking notes. I'm taking minutes and then, well, so currently the process for reconciliation for the bank accounts themselves, the accounts payable and stuff, we have an agreement with Lori Curler at Harrisburg's town office. She currently conducts the bank reconciliations for us and makes sure that our accounts line up to what actually is shown on the bank statements. That would continue. In terms of the reconciliations for the actual reserve accounts, NEMRIC does allow the functionality for us to be able to reconcile our own accounts, check to make sure that we're drawing on that same account. And NEMRIC, the software that we currently use, will also inform us of any issues that we have that you're drawing this account past its, you know, because NEMRIC is maintaining a balance that is not connected to the bank. We have to tell NEMRIC what we have in the bank and what we spend. And we have to tell the bank what we do in our, you know, with our town budget and what we're spending and that kind of thing. So the reconciliation process goes both ways, and NEMRIC allows us to track that pretty accurately by these reconciliation reports, and by this is something that should be done weekly, bi-weekly, and monthly. And we're setting up processes right now. Both myself and the assistant clerk are relatively new, so we're setting up new processes. It gives us a great opportunity.
But the question is, if there was money spent that wasn't consistent with the intent of the reserve account, how does that money get put back into the reserve account? What's the funding mechanism for that, and the timeline for getting that done?
So since there would be a single bank account, the money would be in a sense, and again, this is not the way that we would want it, this is the way we would correct mistakes, but the money would be fungible in the sense that because we're using a single bank account, we can use what we call a journal entry correction in NEMRIC to be able to make the correction back and forth between the accounts, the reserve account and the general fund or something like that. And that would also be reflected on any town report we generate in regards to any of these issues. So there would be a paper trail, there would be an actual reflection of that, it would appear on the bank statement, or excuse me, on the NEMRIC statement, and it would appear on the balance sheet and the transaction detail report or any of the available reports that we have. Does that answer your question?
I think so, but you know, you're a little bit above my head in terms of journal entries and those sorts of things, but it's just, I think, important for the town to be able to show that if monies were spent for whatever reason on these reserve accounts, that the reserve accounts have been made whole through whatever process used, right?
Absolutely, and that's good for our own internal accounting because we want to know. And so, like I said, running these reconciliation reports for us on a weekly or monthly basis is going to allow us to say, hey, this was debited incorrectly and this was credited incorrectly. We have to make a journal entry to reflect that. And it would be noted, there would be a process, we have a book downstairs with a list of all the journal entries that are made, which correct account to account. And currently we're setting up processes so that's going to happen on a regular basis.
So what's the contract for that?
in the next 6 weeks, we hope, somewhere in that neighborhood. But it's gonna coincide with the bank compensation, so to speak.
I'm John, as the former select board chair, and it seems as though that we had one bank account for 9 years I was in office. And I would think it would be appropriate to show where funds were misused and misappropriated, and everybody here would like to know that. And so when you come across those things, I think it should be noted and brought to the public's attention. Because we've been very upset about transfers that have been made that should have been publicly noted. And we want to know where the money went, for what reason and why.
All right, well, I appreciate that, and I will do my best over the course of this next time as we're gonna discover a lot of things along the way, and so that will be part of my process. I will have pretty accurate documentation over what we find.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Any further questions on this particular issue?
And the interest income would be,
The interest income currently, there's, I believe, there's 2 lines in the budget right now for interest income.
Interest income is line 30. The other revenue.
Okay, yes, yeah, interest income would be just one, would be based on just that one account, yeah. Would be based on the interest income generated off the one checking account.
So it wouldn't be allocated.
I'm sorry,
You wouldn't allocate
no, it would be allocated as
it.
interest.
It would all go to general fund, the way you're doing
What's that?
it. The interest would all go to the general fund, is the way you're doing it.
Yes. There is a slight caveat in the sense that we currently have a loan, with the National Bank of Middlebury for a piece of equipment. So, you know, that'll be part of the transition process. We can't close that account, obviously. We're gonna figure out a way to reduce it and make sure that we're in compliance in that regard.
So I understand the whole concept of NEMRIC and how it works, I know it all through journal entries. I guess what I would like to see is a reconciliation of cash. In saying that, a reconciliation, for example, as of today, how much cash do we have? How much is supposed to be in the reserve funds that isn't there because we're keeping one account? And where are we on the general fund, and are we in line with our budget and spending? That needs to be done. Everybody's doing the journal entries on the reserve accounts, but nobody's looked at the cash. It's about the cash. And if you're gonna keep one bank account, that's fine, but you need to do a reconciliation, and I think it needs to be reported. Where are we at any given time, every select board meeting? Where's the general fund cash, and where are we with cash for that budget? And we need to know that number.
I completely agree with you. Meeting with the NEMRIC representative yesterday, we came up with a list of procedural reports that I will have available at every budget meeting, which will include a transaction detail report, a balance sheet, current cash, any statements that we have, so that we will be able to inform. And generally, what I'd like to do also, if the select board approves, is add a line item in most of these agendas that says clerk and treasurer report, just so that we can all have an accurate statement of this is where we stand today, this is where we stand in regards to this, and all the things like that, just for be able to provide this as something that other towns do, and I think that we can adopt those same procedures to be able to answer folks' questions.
So we're going to eliminate these slush cash funds that are for the garage, and we had one, I think, for the office here.
Well, so I'm not talking about changing anything in terms of the funds that NEMRIC reports on. Is
We're just
that,
talking cash now versus non-cash, really, that's what.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm talking about cash that is designated for office use, where there's no paper trail, just cash. You got another one for the garage, it's my understanding. We never had that before. Every item purchased for the road crew or for the office, we had to sign off on.
Yeah.
And that's the way it should continue to be done. Not $5,000 fund for miscellaneous nuts and bolts.
sure.
I want to know where that money is being spent and for what, on a weekly basis or bi-weekly basis, and then signed off by the select board.
In terms of it being signed off on the select board, I'm not sure that is necessarily kind of a hurdle that needs to go to, but but I understand your question, and I want to, and I'm gonna address it in the sense that right now, the way that the assistant clerk and I are doing business, and this is the way that I'm gonna set up for the town garage, is that these items, if you buy some nuts and bolts, you buy something random, I just bought some office supplies for the office. If we buy something that's coming out of petty cash and miscellaneous funds, it's going to be journaled correctly in the sense that it's going to be posted to accounts payable, and the fund from which those monies are drawn will be documented and will be on the accounts payable warrant, which will be signed by the select board and everything.
That's the way it needs to be done.
And that's the way that I 100% agree with you on that, and I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. Is that good? Was that clear? Great. Yeah, that's the way I want to do it. Yes, sir.
Could we go back to just a second to the paving line? In the revenue,
Yes.
side of things, I mean, I understand you're talking with Rick, but this is more of an organizational thing than an implementation thing. I'm just wondering what your thought is regarding either removing it as a source of revenue or having a line item for paving that would use this revenue to fund that line item in expenditures. And then any additional funds that the town would need to put in for cost share for that paving.
Yeah, so this is partly related to further down the line here in this document from your committee, which basically goes into road construction and maintenance. And again, that's something I'm checking with Rick on. I haven't had time to deal specifically with every single issue on this. So can we table that question, and I will make note of it, and we'll come back to have a.
I think, to explain it quickly, easily, the only issue with the 200,000, it's not an issue with 200,000 per se. It's in this budget, it's not added into any of the numbers anywhere in this budget.
Yes.
It's very confusing, it's
Yes.
just stuck in there.
Yes, and I think that part of that is that it's anticipated grant revenue, and I think that is in terms of a functional change for both readability and comprehensibility for the budget. I think we need to work on that. So I agree with you on that. Can I table that further discussion on that until next time when we have a little bit more understanding? Okay. And so the line 32, somewhat related to this, is the highway reimbursements. It's understanding that this line is essentially reimbursement to staff time, loading salt in Waltham, who stores their salt in one of our buildings. This line should have an estimate provided. There was a question as to whether or not we should be charging some amount of rent to that town space with the town of Waltham. So I also have reached out to folks on that. I was able to find previous charges. We are charging for that. We are charging for use of the loader. We are charging for those kinds of things. I don't have an estimate for this current year. Walton hasn't gotten back to me on whether or not they're going to do the same thing, use the same services, charge the same amount, what the rate's going to be. So that's going to be kind of like a future negotiation for us, but that would appear in line 32, which is miscellaneous highway reimbursement, which in 2024 actual was $3,000, and that was in line with what I found. But again, I'm going to talk to Rick and I'm going to talk to Waltham to make sure that we're all on the same page regarding like the compensation that the town receives for that.
So we'll put something in the budget for it.
I think so, yeah. Again, it's going to be kind of hinging on them getting back to us if they're going to do the same thing, and if Rick says, okay, this is the cost, and we're going to just add 5% or whatever the cost of, living has gone up, diesel fuel and all the various ancillary things. So we have staff salaries, staff benefits. On the second page of this is an issue that this committee brought forward to concern for the budget, which is particularly in lines 47 onward. Now, I was able to compile some information about staff salaries and staff benefits from many other towns using a 2024 Vermont League of Cities and Towns survey, where they went through and actually itemized what folks are making, what their responsibilities were for the population of the town, the average, the median, all the various information. I compiled that into a table, which I can make available, but for right now, I can tell you, if you have any specific questions on the rate, I can tell you that what I did was I collapsed the table down to only include full-time employees, only include positions where the clerk and treasurer were combined responsibility, only include people who work 80 hours in a pay period, and only include those who are paid bi-weekly or weekly or weekly over the course of the year. According to the Vermont League of Cities and Towns survey from 2024, and I was able to update the in 2025 since I know the salary. The salary for the town clerk and treasurer was an average of $61,649.06. The average population for the towns that I mentioned, considering those criteria of a town that has a clerk treasurer combined position and a town that has an 80-hour work week or full-time employee, basically, the average population for those towns is about 2,500 people. So the average rate of the clerk and treasurer for a town with approximately 4 times the population of Canton was actually less. So there is that information, the hourly rate, but the median and the hourly rate in mind. But there are other factors to concern that we're specifically concerned with what the League of Cities and Towns survey, which was health insurance benefits, which was what they call fringe benefits of any kind, including pensions, including life insurance and other types of insurance and things like that. Those were not included in the survey. And so their salaries could be in fact much higher or lower depending on those things, but I just wanted to give you an average and update for that. Yeah. And that information is all publicly available as well. You can find that on the Vermont League of Cities and Towns website. That's the 2024 survey, and you can go through every town in Vermont that responded to the survey and find all the same information that I have. The town
If you've already compiled it, if you've already got that on there, it'd be nice as a handout.
Great.
Yeah.
I can do that. Okay, great.
How many people want a copy of it?
That's really the next week. Town office expenses. So yes, sir.
I got one comment when you change the law, especially on highway.
Especially on what?
Highway
Yeah.
department.
Yes, sir.
I work in probably 30 towns in the state. A lot of highway depends on other departments for labor. It doesn't show in their budgets. The highway budget could be low in these towns because one of them in particular is Quincy, or Bethel. Their water department is pulled in and stuff like that. I don't believe that shows in the Bethel Highway Department budget. But it is activity attributed to the roads.
Yeah, I know when Rick does stuff, sometimes he does time sharing with other communities like Addison, we have that, we have the Jens, I've seen us work, Jeff Stone's digging away, and Rick's there, driving a truck, and then I got 3 guys from the Jens in a hole digging, or moving stuff around, so we do that time sharing.
What this on the individual departments in the town will show is like the Bethel Highway Department budget spent per mile of road will show low because the highway department is getting free labor from the water department.
Right.
So it distorts some of the report.
Yeah, and I would also say that from my experience in looking at salaries too, that sometimes gets in there too, because I know a town next door to us has like, they make X amount of dollars, but they make more on this other amount of money. There's summer wages, winter wages, and there's a combination of things that works
There's a
around.
lot of variables to function.
Absolutely, and just getting one number from my cities, police and towns, it might necessarily not be the exact.
Yeah, and this number was just for clerk treasurer, not for highway department. So I
Sure.
Yeah, and I would agree with Ms. Moulton, but I would also state that it's just not highway, I would say it's also personnel, they do that too. They have there's a lot of movement of wages, hours, and benefits.
So moving on, town office expenses, which was line.
I have a question. I'm sorry, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Melissa.
Hi, okay, so I mean, I have a question on the salary piece before we move on.
Sure.
I guess, but the VLCT comp report is not available to the general public. You have to sign in to get that. And it's only available to members of the town, that are elected or whatever, signed up. And the second part is, can you tell us what special deals you have going on with the employees? If I remember looking through the general ledger and seeing your special deal you had for Maggie paying all of her employee retirement section, as well as there were expenses in the health insurance, where I think she may have been, I don't know, you'll have to check, that there was a health reimbursement of some sort for maybe co-pays. So are those things something that you've already put in place with your new employee? And I think not being transparent about those deals, special deals, and they're not in the budget. They weren't correctly put into the budget in the past. Anyway, those are my concerns.
Thank you, and the first thing is, I'm sorry, I signed into the VLCT website, and I thought, okay, I guess I must have set my mind that it's not publicly available, so my mistake. Anyone that wants a full copy, all the towns that responded to the survey, please come to the office, I'll make it available for you, I'll print it out. This is taken from that data, but I'll make a full copy available, just come to the office. In terms of the second.
Melissa is another former town clerk.
Yep. Yes, I have seen the name. I'm sorry, I'm still just taking minutes here, and in terms of special arrangements or special deals, what I discovered is that the town there were part of the hiring agreement for the previous clerk, that was a particular set of circumstances. I don't have all the details at my fingertips. I'm happy to make whatever is allowable by law, public information, available to folks. In terms of my special deals, I have no special deals with the town. My town salary, benefits, and all that is both in the budget, and as to the specifics of the deal, I have no special arrangement with the town besides what was offered to me by the town, which is not quote unquote special in any way. It's just the normal package that you would hire employees: health insurance, the pension, which I make full contribution to, and anything else in that related to that. Life insurance, I believe, is accounted for that as well. So I can, again, whatever I'm allowed by HR protocol and law, I will make available, and anyone that wants to find more pertinent or information, specific information about that, I'm happy to be responsive to that. I don't have it here at my fingertips.
Yeah, regarding the paragraph on staff salaries, I'm just wondering what the board's reaction is to the idea of how COLAs would be calculated and showing those in the budget as such, rather than under the select board discretionary line where it's not clear what that money is being spent on.
We typically on COLAs, basically go with what CPI is for the Northeast section of the United States, which encompasses Vermont. And usually we started from 0 to 5% because we had no idea what the COLA was going to be at the time of that. So when it reverts down to June, when we're finalizing increases in salaries. So if the COLA was at showed like 3 1/4, that's what we typically would give at 3 1/4. We wouldn't overrate it at that, and I can't, that's how we typically did it.
That's how we calculate it.
Right, that's how you've done it in the past, understanding. That was based on 1 month's value, correct?
No,
Just the June value?
no, it wasn't. It was over the 6 months that it was there. We would look at it as a 6-month period, not as a 1-month period, because that number can flex up and down so dramatically. 1 month it could be 1%, the next month it could be 8%.
So what the committee was suggesting, excuse me, John, was that calculation be made based on months, however many months you want to use. We suggested a year. If you wanted to use 6 months, I think that would be fine. But do that based on previous months before or like ending now, so that that number can be put into the budget so people can see what it is. And then, you know, it might be a little bit behind. Some years it might benefit employees, some years it might hurt employees a little bit. But it's a way to be transparent in terms of what the board is contemplating and asking the town to approve.
Yeah, prorating the cost of living adjustments is not a bad idea. I wonder if there's a statutory thing that I'm not aware of, so I'd like to look into that. Absolutely, so I will look into that. I can tell you right now that what we did was change, this budget is reflective of a 3% COLA increase. That's it. It was more, and we found that it was, I think it was rated at like 5 or something like that. And Donna went in, the assistant clerk went in, we looked at what the CPI adjustment had been, we made it 3 for the purposes of this budget, just to make sure that that was a little closer to what it's probably actually going to be. So I would definitely look into that. The prorating and whether or not we have any statutory requirements about that, and see about that.
So would the select board discretionary line then disappear and show up as a COLA?
There's nothing in the select board discretionary line right now,
Right,
so.
right.
And we can separate out the COLA from the actual salary if that makes it more clear as a budget line item. I mean, okay.
Yeah, we can change line 45 to COLA.
Yeah.
Instead of select board discretionary.
Yeah, and we can do that. Yes, sir.
I think there was some discussion, just something to look into on 51, health insurance. Based on what we're gonna be getting for health insurance, I don't know if you're a family plan, I think there's some discussion, it's gonna be a lot more than what's budgeted. So we just need to make sure that budget number is accurate.
So yeah, I had some questions about not only the health insurance line, but also the retirement line, so I think we need to clarify those decreases, just because, I mean, they look fantastic, nice decreases, I just don't.
So the decrease I can tell you was that the hiring agreement that Maggie had was that the town contributed a much higher percentage for the Beamers, which is the municipal pension system, than is currently allotted. Right now, I believe, and I can quote you on one statistic, not the other, it's a 8% employer contribution and 11.5% gross pay contribution from the employee. That is what is currently in place, which is Plan C. That will account for a significant reduction because the town was making a much higher contribution for the previous clerk's retirement account. So that going forward is no longer the case. Your standard Beamer's contribution, which the employer does, I believe it's 8%, but for me, I definitely know it's 11.5% of my personal contribution towards that. In terms of the health insurance, I am in the process of being set up as the administrator for the health insurance policy for the town. That's taken a little bit of time as we kind of get the wheels moving on that. So I can't give you the exact answer yet on cost increases for next year, but I'm sure that they're going to be higher. I want to make sure that we have an accurate accounting in the budget. So if we can table that particular item until either the next budget meeting, or you can reach out to me specifically about that once I get kind of my feet wet on the insurance thing, because I'm technically the insurance person for all 4 employees in the town. I'll have a better understanding to be able to say to you, oh yeah, this is what it's going to be, and this is the reflection.
And what about the concept of having some cost share by the employees for health insurance and, having them have a choice in terms of what level of plan that they would choose, and then having that, obviously the cost share, if there was one, would be different based on which plan they chose.
I think if an employee wants a lesser coverage, that would be their option. We're just offering the single plan, and we look at our comparable towns that are offering comparable plans, and being comparable is really important for us because loss of Mr. Stone or Mr. Kluger would be.
Sure, there's no argument there, I'm just wondering.
I mean, we have looked at the numbers, we are trying to, there's no good answer to health insurance right now, I don't think for anybody. So we're trying to come up with the best thing that's gonna work for our employees. So,
Sure,
and
that's
we are looking at the comparables.
Yeah, so do other towns then, have some cost share from their employees for health insurance?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not many in my discussion. I know others, Virginia's doesn't. I don't believe Ferrisburg does. I know that there's other towns that don't.
I know, Mary Run,
Mary.
I know Heinsberg has a cost share, and they're actually increasing the employee share to 15%. They're doing that over time.
Okay.
Right now it's 12%, but their end goal is 15.
Yeah, and I mean, that can be something we investigate and something the select board can have a say on.
One more point, the other part of that investigation really should be what level of plans those other towns are offering. Is everybody offering platinum, or are some offering gold at 100%? But, that's part of the puzzle as well.
Right.
You want me to just knock these out? Okay, great. Let's see, town off number 10-7-20 line in the budget, which is currently the town office expense. The committee suggested most of these are fine. There was a question as to whether the GMP e-ball project would be paid off. So I'll handle that first. I have been digging deep on the e-ball project this week because I wanted to be able to have an answer for you. Unfortunately, everyone from Green Mountain Power that was around in 2016 is no longer around now. And no one was able to get me any set, or, and this is Efficiency Vermont and Green Mountain Power, any numbers on the e-wall project from their end of things. I have our numbers, which show that we are currently in the zone of paying for the credit that we received from Green Mountain Power was a 6-year credit, and after 10 years, we would own the equipment that was provided to us at a reduced cost from Green Mountain Power. Knowing the start date is going to be really important towards knowing that end date. I don't have the start date yet because they don't know, I don't know. This is the only folder I have available for that. So the institutional knowledge has kind of been lost in the mix there. So I can promise you I will get answers on that. I can tell you that we're certainly past the 6-year credit. We no longer receive that credit from Green Mountain Power, but we are still in, I believe, that 10-year period where afterwards we will have to budget. After the 10-year period, we will fully own the machines, and we will have to make sure that we include maintenance and upkeep as part of our consideration for the various and sundry town buildings.
What he means by machines, that would be our heat pumps.
Yeah, sorry, heat pumps and any other items that they gave us during that project.
And then
Heat pumps, water heater, and a couple other things.
Yeah.
The second part of that question is a debt service spreadsheet that shows all town debt and annual payments for principal and interest and payoff dates for those loans to allow for improved financial forecasting. This is an excellent suggestion. I had yet to find a debt service spreadsheet. I actually reached out. There's a great listserv among folks for the Vermont municipal clerks and treasurers and stuff. We communicate all the time, every single clerk and treasurer in the state. I reached out. I have an excellent example of a debt service spreadsheet that another town is using. My goal is in the next 6 months to be able to have a fully ready to go debt service spreadsheet that includes all of our things. If I find one along the way, fantastic, I'll be able to incorporate that, great. Otherwise, I'm going to be building it from scratch, and I want to make sure that we have that ready to go. So I didn't have it, but we're going to have it. Public safety, specifically about the bars contract, we already talked about that. Are there any further questions about the bars contract? Professional services, all the various items here listed need to be reviewed and updated with real cost assessments. I'm reaching out to some of the folks that we're participating with in terms of our professional services to make sure that they're going to be accurate. That's an ongoing process. I don't know because sometimes they don't know. They're looking to, they operate on the fiscal year, they're not necessarily operating as far ahead as the town. So I just want to make sure that we're giving you accurate information. So stay tuned for more information there. Dues and assessments, the only question here, this is line 10-7-40. The only question here is in regards to the Bixby Library. It's the understanding of the committee that this figure is based on a per capita amount. If we wonder whether or not the assessment has been updated by the library recently. I reached out to the director of the Bixby Library. I haven't heard back from her yet, but I can tell you in my conversations with other members of the other towns, like Harrisburg, I talked to the town clerk over there. The library did in fact update their assessment, but it has remained the same. They decided not to increase the fee charge that they're charging the towns. They're gonna leave it flat. And that's the way it is. I'm gonna get confirmation on that and on the way that it's calculated when I speak to the director, but that's the way that it stands right now.
I think we were just wondering, and to that point, if per capita is increasing, for example, more in Fairfield, we can't much really gain more when they keep it flat.
Yeah.
I think it's a discussion to have with Bixby.
Yeah, and
Just out of fairness.
yep, I will. I look back and I contacted the library director Thursday, I think. She hasn't gotten back to me, so stay tuned for that as well. The IT and software expenses, which is line 10-7-45, on line 132, managed IT, we suggest that if already not completed, that the service should be shopped around to get the best price. I'll handle that one first. Maggie did an extensive shop around several years ago when she decided to go with the current software managing the IT management company that we have. And to be honest, after the reviews from other town clerks and treasurers in the state, plus her research, I'd say that we're pretty good right now. I'd say that that's a pretty good, she made a pretty good assessment, and she actually dropped and switched to a different company a 2 years ago, and I think she made a good choice. And we're pretty satisfied with our IT support right now, and I think because of, I'm pretty happy with it. I can investigate other options, but there's a certain amount of, if it's not broke, don't fix it. The cost assessment is probably going to be equivalent among a lot of different people, but I can investigate that for future years. Line 136, website, there was a question as to whether there's an annual website hosting fee. Yes, there is. And if there is, when does that get paid? I believe that gets paid once a year. Don't 100% quote me on that. I will make sure to have an updated, accurate information for you. The newsletter is a separate, or is part of that. I think what we're going to do for now is probably eliminate the newsletter and make sure that our website is more updated more regularly. And I think that we can have a news and events site or something like that that will link you to things that are going on that we can use in Front Forum and other venues to be able to say, okay, this is news that's going on. That'll save us some time and energy in terms of compiling that in some office hours. There is confusion over lines 139 and 140, the NEMRIC payments, as to whether these are two separate items or just confused and listed as one thing in 24 and 25, and both necessary in 26. This is line 132. I want to find this exact thing because I spoke to the NEMRIC person yesterday. Yes. So NEMRIC support is very valuable to us. NEMRIC is a difficult program to use, and they provide excellent customer service. Absolutely excellent customer service. NEMRIC support includes that and includes time on the phone, and they're very generous about their time on the phone with us. The backup and DRA, which is data recovery. Basically, if the building were to burn down, our computer services, the servers crashed, they can deliver us a computer and have us back up to exactly where we were the day before within the day. And that's a necessary thing as well. That means we don't have to pay for server storage, for all the data we have, for all our records, anything like that. NEMRIC has that, and they hold it for us in a secure location. The cloud is pretty valuable as well. That allows us to use the program with much more quickly and at multiple computer stations downstairs, and allows listers and assessors and other folks to participate in using NEMRIC. It's a pretty valuable item as well. In terms of the way that they were budgeted for 2024 versus 2025, I think what happened was that we didn't spend the money in the 24 actual. It was budgeted, but I don't think it was agreed upon in terms of item number 139, line 139, which is the backup, but that is budgeted for 26. And the cloud, I think we're going to probably make that change. It was budgeted for in 25, it wasn't bought, but I think we're going to continue we're going to keep it. I think it's going to be valuable. And most NEMRIC services are very valuable. It's an unfortunate kind of necessary expense for town management software. So I think we're gonna have to keep all those, and I will make sure that we have an accurate reflection that these things going forward will either stay separate and be accounted for correctly, or they will make sure that, you know that we could collapse them and say NEMRIC payments, and just say, this is kind of, we don't need to see the individual details, or we can leave them as separate line items too. Highway staff salaries, I feel like we already covered some of that, and that's related to 10-8-45. I feel like we already discussed the salary issue, and the board has already kind of addressed that. Highway benefits, the same. Highway administration and garage, oh, yes, ma'am.
Can you talk about comp time and how that's tracked?
Yes, so unfortunately, the way that comp time had been tracked was not done in a way that was up to the standards of payroll management. I have identified the issue, I have corrected the issue, and I've been talking to both Jeff and Rick to be able to make sure that they have a good understanding of what comp time is, and that they have a good understanding of when they can use it or not use it and what they want, and that we're all going forward, the four of us who make up the town, are all going to be able to have a better understanding of exactly what it means.
And there was a question on comp time, forcing employees to use comp time, but under the Fair Labor Standard Act, which actually decides on the use of comp time, you cannot force an employee to take comp time. It is their choice to either take comp time or take the salary. It's their choice, not the employer's choice. So whatever they would like to do, what they would, is how it works out. Yes.
Is there a time limit when they can use the comp time?
There is, I don't believe there's a time limit, but there's a maximum amount that can be approved.
Okay.
Right now, the comp time thing was so confusing and frustrating for the guys in the garage, they decided to take it as overtime. That going forward, I believe that we're gonna get to the point where they're gonna be more comfortable assigning comp time in their time sheets and things like that. I literally did this yesterday with the NEMRIC representative that was here. Redid the payroll system. We're in the process of making it more clear, easier to use, and that way going forward, they're gonna be more comfortable. Line 10-8-20, the highway administration and garage expense. Again, the committee would like to emphasize the need for a debt service spreadsheet. I believe we kind of answered that, and that's in process. Specifically, as it relates to the loan on the salt sheds, pole barn, truck loans, and excavator lease, that will absolutely be making sure that those are included here. All county equipment. You know, the debt service spreadsheets can be huge in terms of everything, copiers, computers, and all town equipment, down to staplers and stuff like that. I mean, there are literally, I've seen them that expensive, or they can be related to very specific expenses. I think we're gonna kind of land somewhere in the middle. Anything that probably costs more than $1,000 to replace or has a payment, we're gonna make sure it's included on that service spreadsheet. Lines 175 and 176 need to be populated. Yeah, so like I said, that dump truck loan right now is being held by the National Bank of Middlebury. I'm making sure that that bank account stays available, and that we're going to have that included in the debt service spreadsheet. That is also, I think, they need to be populated here. I think that there was just some question on finding those records and maintaining those records. So I will make sure that those get updated further for future budget discussions. And let's see, line 178. The committee understands that there is a lease agreement for the excavator and wonder what the plan is for when the lease expires. Is there a buyout number we should be planning for? And if so, should the buyout be funded out of the reserve account? I don't have the information on that yet. I haven't reached that point in the highway numbers. So I don't have that information for you yet. Please stay tuned. I will absolutely make sure that will all be part of the future issues here, because we can't obviously not have an answer to that. And line 10-20-00.60, the truck loan and interest. The committee added $67,500 for loan principal, and the 2 dump truck loans is $5,500 for the loan interest. Those numbers were calculated for terms of the respective loan agreements. It should be double checked. Again, I'm on that. I haven't reached town garage yet on my list of things that I'm reviewing, but that is definitely, it's right on there. I'm making sure that I get there. Line 10-8-30, or account, excuse me, I should be saying account 10-8-30, line 206, retreatment. The committee does not feel that this retreatment amount of $100,000 is necessary. With the $200,000 in grant money coming from the state for paving this year, only 10 miles of paved road in the town, and a 10-year retreatment plan, it doesn't seem prudent this year. We do acknowledge that there is a match required from the town for the grant money. It is our understanding that most, if not all, of that is made up with in-kind costs covered by the towns for shimming and labor. Also, the committee felt that the town paved roads were in pretty good shape, and we wonder if we wouldn't stretch the retreatment plan out to 12 to 15 years. Rick should weigh in here, so stop there for a second. Rick should weigh in here. Again, that's a discussion I haven't had with him yet. The $200,000 is prospective grant income that we're working on. I have another grant here, which we're gonna do another business that the town is applying for in terms of some other work that is going to be pretty substantial and allow us some things. But I need to talk to Rick and make sure that we have an accurate understanding of exactly what his feelings on that are. I feel, having talked to him now pretty extensively in only a week, I feel pretty confident in his abilities and his judgment of the way things are, and I'd like to continue to speak with him on that issue. So again, stay tuned for that particular issue.
But in terms of the retreatment that is budgeted here currently, that was in addition to the $200,000, correct?
The 100,000 is from town funds, the 200,000 is an anticipated grant.
Right. But the $100,000 would be essentially to pave an additional mile of road. And I'm just wondering what your thought is regarding the need for that, given the 10-year retreatment plan and the $200,000 that we're expecting this year. Do you think that that is still needed in the budget, $100,000?
I think you still have to like match the funds.
Well, yeah, we acknowledge that, but we said it's our understanding most of that cost share, if you will, is made up with our own labor coming from other line items for shimming the roads that are paved, that are repaved. So if in fact that's the case, then we wouldn't need this line item as the cost share for the 200,000.
Yeah, I think we're just saying, and we're just looking at it from the common sense. We've only got 10 miles of paved road. Why do we have to pay 3 miles in 1 year when we've had such a large 33% budget increase last year? That is our concern as taxpayers.
No.
And it just doesn't seem prudent to do 3 miles of road when you only have 10 miles in the town in 1 year. It doesn't seem prudent.
Okay.
That's all we're saying.
Yes, Mr. Moore.
I actually talked with the former assistant head of DPW in Burlington, who was now the head of DPW in Columbus, about our high use road, basically coming up the Lake Road over and into Virginia.
Yeah.
He would anticipate a 7-year rotation on paving of that stretch.
Okay.
So, as a, we have a 10-year rotation. And some of the lesser used roads probably will go well. But our high use road, Lake Road up over Jack, he would anticipate a 7-year rotation.
All right.
Yeah, so again, I'm gonna have a much more extensive conversation with Rick about the specifics that you folks brought up in terms of that particular issue. And again, we'll have more detailed information on that coming up. But, I think I like our roads. I think that they're pretty good. And I'd like to see them stay in their high state. I want to do what's necessary, or I think most of us want to do what's necessary to maintain them. Perhaps there's some areas we can talk to Rick about, but I want to make sure that we're assertive.
If we don't maintain our workforce on the top, we do more damage to our pavement by allowing the workforce to participate as opposed to maintaining. That's my concern as an engineer or the Colchester, he's a CE as well.
Right, yeah, and our roads take a beating with every manure truck going down the road.
Show.
Yeah, and knowing that, as Rick has told us many times, our base for our roads are mainly sand. And when they initially put them down, so they kind of get squished out every time. You have this 100,000-pound manure truck going down the road at 30 miles an hour. So.
I would just say that if we're contemplating making changes one way or another so that there be some sort of data that's based off of, like a traffic volume study or something of that nature. I don't know how much it costs to put those things across the road to count vehicles, but changes made to that schedule ought to be based on some data rather than just one person's opinion, which I respect completely. But it ought to be based on some data.
I appreciate that, yes.
Great. Moving ahead to, this is just some general concerns now. I don't think they're related to any specific things. Reserve funds, again, we already discussed reserve funds. Are there any further questions that we have about that?
Well, I think we discussed whether they need to be funded with cash, and then we discussed the levels appropriate and how they need to be funded going forward. That's a whole other topic, which is what there's all the questions of that.
Yeah, and so these go through the actual specific reserve funds, yeah. So, to deal with, let's say, we could take the first one, I guess, is the Highway Capital Projects Fund. This fund should either be renamed as the Highway Paving Fund. So I believe we're talking about things on.
These are not in the budget you're looking at.
Right. Well, that's right. Yeah, so the Highway Capital Projects Fund should either be renamed as a Highway Paving Fund and funded accordingly to support the town's paving plan, or eliminated and appropriations for paving made the actual operating budget. Note if funded annually, in the general fund, any variations in paving will create fluctuations in tax rate that can be specific. Putting money here with no plan to expend any appropriations budget is unnecessary. So I mean, yeah, we do have the option to make some changes to something like that. The town building maintenance fund, this fund is overfunded. The committee recommends reallocating $100,000 of this fund to the highway capital equipment fund and an annual appropriation of $5,000 to be made to fund future maintenance needs. I'd like to make sure that we have an accurate understanding of the EVOL program and our possible needs for maintenance on the various devices that, again, the heat pumps and the things like that that we've invested so heavily in the town hall and the town garage, to make sure that we can, that $5,000 will cover it or something like that before we make any kind of substantial or significant changes to the fund. The tire fund. This fund should be eliminated. Tires are a routine expenditure that should be budgeted for in the operations budget. This would result in the need to budget for tires in the fiscal year 26 budget. If an unanticipated event occurs, the necessary funds can be taken from the emergency fund or savings and other annual budget line items. The balance should be moved to the highway capital equipment fund. I want to talk to Rick about this specific issue and just see what the tire expenses have been. I know everyone knows, I'm sure that the tire is very expensive, and maintaining a separate fund specifically for that purpose might be valuable to him. So I would also need to check on what's been allocated from that fund just to make sure I have an accurate understanding of, has it been used? Are there things that are being charged to it? Has he been charging to it every year? I don't have that information yet, but again, stay tuned for that.
Actually, that was an old antiquated item that was always there. It's been there as long as I can remember.
We made that a fund, okay, because we got the grader and there were big expenses associated with changing of those tires. So we made a fund specific for that, to address the issues associated with the changing those tires. My opinion, we're so overloaded with equipment, our maintenance of the equipment that we have is, for a small town, draining us dry.
Related to that is the highway capital equipment fund. This fund needs a listing of all the equipment you would expect to have to replace on a recurring basis, or when the year is planned to be replaced, and the net cost of replacing the item. So that would be part of the debt service spreadsheet. I think that would be a pretty good place for that to be, both in terms of the current equipment that we have, the debt we have on it, and the depreciation, valuable life, that kind of thing. The committee also questions whether or not we need new equipment when we're replacing items. This issue I've seen raised before in other towns. Sometimes because we're insured through the Vermont League of Cities and Towns plan, sometimes they won't allow and they won't insure equipment that is of a certain age. So equipment has to be new to be able to get insurance requirements. Also, there are, the ability to work on old equipment is limited, and that would increase our cost of maintaining. I mean, depending on the type and scale of equipment, the prices for mechanics have not gone down. The committee also questioned, or given that we only have 20 miles of roads to maintain, can we get by with used equipment, acknowledging that there will be somewhat higher maintenance costs without a plan for equipment replacement? It's not possible to appropriate this fund account, it's not possible to appropriately fund this account. Excuse me. I agree. I think that there's probably an excellent opportunity for us to use the debt service spreadsheet or debt service document that we create to be able to give us more accurate information on that, and just have a better list than simply just a list that appears like in the town report or something like that. And we'll have a better idea of it.
But I just want to say something, the debt service is kind of looking back to the past, we're talking looking 20 years to the future.
Yeah, well, the debt service will, I mean, if an asset depreciates and we know that its value has decreased beyond its usable life left, a debt service.
Well, that's depreciation, that's not debt service, so that's fine.
Well, I mean, the debt service would include that. It would include all of that. It would include the debt service that we have on loans, it would include depreciation, it would include things like that, which would give us an idea, okay, we have greater years.
Currently, we're just on the clear, we're not funding debt service out of these accounts.
No.
Debt service is coming out of the general fund, so we're talking about future spend for the next 20 years.
Yes, and I think that this knowledge, providing us a good basis of knowledge, I think would be really helpful. And I think that if we can locate that in one particular spot, I think we'd be better served.
Yeah, what really needs to occur with these funds, first we need to decide, continue to go down through here and see if there's some funds that can be eliminated. Make that decision. Whatever reserve accounts are left, there needs to be a discussion with whoever the principals are that are drawing money out of those funds and can identify the projects that are upcoming. Needs to occur, and what Kevin is saying, then we need to look at what the balance is now, look at how much those expenditures are going to be, when they're going to take place, and at that point, if you're looking out 10 or 15 years, you can start funding those accounts annually so that the resources are there when the expenditure gets in place. And that's what really needs to occur, and it's a pretty simple discussion with the people. I mean, these are going to be estimates, but that's the only way you can really identify the need in terms of annual funding into those reserve funds.
Yeah, well, that's a good assessment of that. So, and yeah, I think you're right on.
We're happy to help with that.
The digitization fund, this fund should be eliminated. It is our understanding that the digitization process is complete. The existing balance should be used to purchase good audio-visual equipment and a projector for town meetings. Any remainder should be reallocated to the highway capital equipment fund. So I think part of what that fund actually funds are the digitization of land records. I believe that that's taken out of that fund. I'll have to double check on this. It is, yeah, and so that's a really valuable service for the town staff. We are very lucky in that regard that we got caught up so quickly. I think it's probably because there's so few land transactions, but it's really valuable for us to have the ability to make those records digital immediately. It reduces staff time in terms of the actual doing of the work. It reduces staff time in the actual having to speak to researchers and lawyers regarding that, because they can do those searches themselves. And there is a fee associated with that, because we have to maintain a database and the scanning devices used for the instruments sent by the financial institutions.
I guess I just want to say, and I understand that, but maybe I don't understand the digitization. But if we're caught up, and it's just a normal recurring operating expense, then it just goes to the general fund. These reserve accounts are maintained to prevent one-time expenses occurring in different years to keep the tax rate level. If this is not a leveling fund needed, we don't need it. It's just another clutter that we don't need. And to me, if we're caught up, it's just an annual operating expense to digitize your land records as they occur.
Okay, yeah, so, no, that's a good point, and I hadn't considered it that way. So one of the things I'd like to do then is just make sure that there's not additional records that we'd like to digitize, which will include other things as I've gone through. I mean, sometimes we're doing all records digitally. So maybe we could take advantage of some of the money that's in there to make sure that we digitize other things before we actually say, let's close the fund down and just make it part of office expenses. So, yeah.
But also, we were thinking, we have a conversation with a vendor who's going to come into the town and see what it would cost to get better lights, better information, and a better system for us to improve sound quality, and so we can have our Zoom meetings functional like that.
Yeah, and also some noise canceling pads that we want to, hang or install and figure out a way because it's echoey. So that would be part of that. The reappraisal fund, the annual state reappraisal money approximating $2,900 should be added to this fund as it is restricted in use and not for offsetting the operating fund budget. This fund should have our best estimate of when the next appraisal will be completed and for how much, and then revenue inserted annually to cover that anticipated need. Our initial estimate was $60,000 needed in fiscal year 31, with an annual appropriation of $5,000. This needs more scrutiny. I agree. Ferrisburg has almost $70,000. Their appraisals coming in this year, they have almost $70,000 in their account, and obviously Ferrisburg has more homes and stuff like that. So I think it would be I think it's incumbent for us to say, yeah, this is something we got to examine a little bit more adequately. And in terms of the last one, restoration fund, this fund should be renamed the fund should be renamed the Records Restoration and Preservation Fund. Estimates of the timing and extent of expenditures are needed. $4 per document recording fee is collected at the time of recording, which yields approximately $1,600 annually, which is restricted in use and not for offsetting the operating fund budget. Annual appropriations to this fund should be adjusted to cover anticipated expenses. Until such time as the anticipated expenditure and funding needs is identified, no town funds should be added to this fund. I think that we could probably end up collapsing this into the digitization fund and then figure out, okay, do we need to? Because our records, if we make them available electronically, it makes our life a lot easier, and then we can include those expenditures and they can be just part of general revenue from like the town offices rather than being funding a very particular type of thing. But we'll examine that, and that would be something that we discuss. Boat ramp fund, the committee felt this fund should be spent and deleted since it's a mixture of town money and donations. The balance should be not be reallocated to other funds. Any future projects identified should be funded through the appropriations budget. I had opportunity to look, and yeah, the boat fund, some of the accounting numbers, the accounts and funds that we use in Nemrick to move to say, okay, this is where we're charging it to, or this is where this is getting paid from. The boat fund hasn't been used in quite a while, so there is probably a good example, this is a good time to say, all right, we can now handle this in general appropriation. So again, that's a good suggestion. Emergency fund. It is necessary, this is a necessary fund to cover major unanticipated expenses like culvert purchases this year due to floods. It is our understanding that this fund is capped by a previous vote of the town at 7% of the town's operating budget. The committee recommends that we should maintain that balance in this account with annual appropriations to maintain the balance of funds at 7% level when necessary to cover expenses made from this account. I don't have the necessary experience yet to be able to say that 7% is enough. I would say, absolutely, we need an emergency fund. I personally keep an emergency fund of 50% of my total yearly expenses, and just, that's myself as an individual. So that's obviously a discussion for the select board and for the folks in the community. But obviously, I think that your recommendation is right on. I would.
That's approximately about $70,000.
Yeah.
We're going to say.
We're just saying right now it's capped, you can't put anything more in unless you change the vote.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, we would need to have a conversation with them
Yeah.
that percentage to change.
Yeah, so that would be a petition, I think, right? Because it would have to go to, it would have to be petitioned, you would hear on the morning and stuff. So, that's probably not considering all the traumatic events that have gone on climatologically and socially, perhaps it's not a bad idea, but I don't have any recommendation yet. And so the committee stands ready to answer any questions that the board has And yeah, this is great. I have a to-do list here of the things that we discussed, that I told you I was going to follow up on, and I will have more specific answers for you. But I really appreciate the citizens' insight in this, me being new to this position. It gave me a good set of priorities to be able to say, like, okay, this is where we're going with this. These are questions and answers that I can provide that the town has questions for. So thank you very much. And if there's any further information, we can welcome to the office, we can discuss about it, or whatever form you'd like.
So, just a couple of questions.
Sure.
So, starting with line 77, we have to have a conversation of the tax anticipation note.
Yes.
As part of the budget line, because that is something we normally take out and I just have to make account for that. So that's just one place that we need to still do some work. The next is we do have a line item for digital land records, which is line 137. And so that might be a place where we can do a little bit of consolidating.
Okay. Yep.
So that may be a place where we can deal with that digitization fund. And we are going to put some monies for that.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of an FYI, looking at it.
Yep.
And then we, on line 178, the excavator loan, questions about that. So, we need to have a conversation about that.
Yeah. That's on my list, and, Monday, I'm literally going to the bank on Monday, we're going to start the process of producing our accounts, we're going to start providing one to learn about all that, trust me, kind of highway, these things, so I'm just getting into that.
And again, how was granted.
Yeah, oh no, I want to be able to provide accurate loan amounts and all that, that's extremely important.
Cool.
Speaking of budget, dealing with town report, we need to make sure we can contact Suzanne.
Advanced matters.
So he wants to contact the town report there also.
Yes, and so I also reached out to an audit firm, and I'm in the process of trying to get this. Well, we should have a discussion about that. Yes, that's good.
Anything else on the budget? Yes, Dave?
Just a question, when do you anticipate having a complete draft budget?
Well, I mean, given several of the factors that we've discussed here today, plus the fact I'm new, I'm gonna have to say it's gonna be several weeks. I mean, it's gonna be.
We get the holiday and everything.
Yeah, we got the holidays.
I'm just wondering what.
Yeah, we have definitely have a deadline.
Yeah, we have a deadline. I want to make sure that I give you the.
I think it's over to the end of the first week in January, it's probably getting close. Because the problem is we have to then get it to the printer, and that's really what kind of like drives the whole situation for us.
So, speaking kind of along those lines, I wonder if we should have one more, let's maybe based on your capacity in getting, some of these numbers, whether or not we want to have one more of these meetings.
Sure. That's fine. I mean.
But before Christmas.
Yeah, there's a select board meeting scheduled for the 23rd.
Yeah.
Which is still going.
Yeah.
And so we can do that, and we could make that an extended select board meeting if you'd like, or we can do Saturday before.
I personally prefer the Saturday, I mean, that's just.
Okay. So maybe. Yeah, let me just go real quick. On the calendar.
Doesn't matter to me.
I don't know.
Oh, I forgot. I don't.
Maybe the first Saturday after the new year would be better.
So like the fifth. the fourth, fifth.
Yeah, if that works, I think that might work.
That's the ultimate crunch day, you know.
Yeah, okay, then the week before, then the Saturday before.
Yeah, because it's like, if you have any hangups, then
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
kind of like,
Okay, no, you're right.
So, I mean, but I don't think it has to be an extensive one, it would just be, in my opinion, to be able to repopulate or populate these line items, right, with the new information.
Yeah.
And then be able to actually like gather it, look at it, pertinent questions, and then be able to kind of go home and study it, you know.
So that would be basically a week from today.
yes, Steve.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it's an actual printing job that you need to do, or can you just, put something together and get it copied? I mean, I hate that, we're not printing thousands of these things, right?
No, we usually print 25 or 40 of these things.
Why not just take it to Staples and get it copied or something? You can get it done in an hour instead of having to have all the week time.
We can discuss that.
Yeah, we can discuss.
I wanna
Find
know-
out. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I wanna know the actual deadline before I say yes or no to that, because if the actual deadline is, actually February, well, then maybe we have time or something like
And
that.
historically, we've always, put it out maybe 100 of these things, and then we've reduced it down to 25, because, people get these things to town meeting day, and they take it, either they leave it on their chair, or it's off in the recycling bin, they never look at it again, and maybe there's a few people that actually keep it or, use it as reference in any form, but again, we have copies here, and maybe you're absolutely right, where you can just actually, bring a hard copy and take it to a printer, just staple and copy.
Yeah.
Right.
And
And the question is really, Steve, how much do you really want in this town? Because there's a lot of, rabies things, this, that,
What
that's-
needs to be in it, I mean, we
you
know
know,
it traditionally is in it,
Yeah.
and whether or not all of those
And
things.
if you
need to
remove
be-
anything, people are gonna yell at you.
Yeah,
But
well,
you
there's
have to-
statutory
but you-
requirements of what
you
you
have to.
Well, the statutory requirements is just basically show the budget or show, finance. All the other stuff is just basically fluff.
And so just make a judgment on what you think should be in
Yeah.
there, put it in there.
There's some pictures and there's some, so it's,
Sure, you wanna make it nice, but you don't have to, make it 100 pages if you can get by with
Yeah.
25.
I hear
So it's a good option, we'll investigate given the givens of this particular year, and then going forward, we can have a
it.
better
I
conversation.
mean, would people be upset, anybody here, if we do some of the fluff in the town report?
Well, we're talking about town
Yeah,
report,
what do you-
we're talking about the budget, we need the budget to decide what we're gonna have to live with financially. The other part, I don't see the big problem.
What is your definition of fluff? Yours is gonna be different.
Anything that's not
Well,
budget.
That is not the budget, from VARs or what we get from the school, those things in the library report, all those.
You're gonna eliminate all the descriptions of the people that we give money to? All of those charities that we.
No, they would be, no, they would be in the back of the budget item. No,
Yeah, because that would be a separate item.
Yeah.
usually,
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I'm
Well,
asking.
there's,
What-
we have the dedications, we have the, minutes of the previous meeting, of the previous town meeting, we have the report records of, I don't know if we do land sales, but we have births and deaths. we have
highway
paving
department,
plan.
paving plan, ordinance and town procedures, vital records, is that important, dog and wolf hybrid information,
Expand to your animals, I mean, this is traditionally the stuff that's been there that we have not removed because it's been traditionally there. And if people want to, abridge the town report, and that's,
How many
that's fine.
questions in town meeting you get on, like, I'm typically probably, I don't know, so.
it's not a lot, and town meeting, we probably have, if we have 100 people participate, it would be a lot. Usually it's 60 to 40.
I mean, I don't know, me personally, I think a lot of that could be eliminated. I'm a finance guy, so I wanna see all the finance numbers, but there's other people who wanna see the dog information, so I think.
You can still have a copy.
Well, we might be able to come up with either a happy medium or a have something published with all the information that's readily available that doesn't include, and then like a supplement or something like that, that would be easier to print and available sooner, rather than the actual other stuff that would be available perhaps on town meeting day.
This is a.
I think a lot of it could be eliminated, that's just me personally, but
Yeah, I don't want to do it, and then everybody goes, oh my God, you're going to destroy the town report that we've always had.
So
This
there
is since
is-
1761,
Yes.
you know?
We wanna make the best decisions for the town, that's why we do this, and so, we wanna, our audits in there, that's financial statements and.
Harrison Regional Planning Commission, blah, blah, blah.
I think the, I don't know, I think the finances are definitely important, I think the planning and where the town's going, like the commissions are important, however, birth and death, I don't know, we really need them, people kind of do that on a daily basis to.
Well, they already decided they weren't gonna print that anymore.
Okay, so those sort of things, I don't know.
And we got marriages and there too.
Hey, it's a community. I don't
Exactly.
know why you're laughing.
No, it's.
We're not laughing.
We're not laughing.
I
We're
guess-
laughing at the conditions of this community
We're not
that's been
laughing
here
at
since
exceptions, but
1761. And you wanna take away traditions that people have had in place for over 200 years, and I don't think you should laugh at
I
that.
don't
I
think
think
that
we're
that's,
laughing, I think we're laughing at ourselves.
it's just, the thing is, the reality, Sharon, is that if we go in and make changes to this, there are gonna be people that are very upset.
Yeah, well, they
And
already
if-
made changes and
and
never
that's-
asked anybody about. We used to get a yearly letter that was a spreadsheet of everybody's dog, everybody who owned a dog, the dog's name, when they had their shots and all that stuff. I haven't seen that for years, but we used to get it every year. So I don't know who decided that that wasn't gonna happen anymore, but all of a sudden now it doesn't show up anymore. There are times where you would want to know whose dog is that may be on the loose. Maybe you could look up on the list and determine whose dog it is and give them a call from that list, but you don't get that anymore. There's a lot of things that have disappeared that, I'm kind of upset about, the cards, the little drawings that the artist drew of the historic buildings around town, they don't have those anymore. Our stationery that had the historic drawing of the town hall, we don't have that anymore. Who decided on eliminating that? That was never voted on, that was never, discussed at any select board meeting. I don't think that's right, personally.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any other further budgetary information? Like I said, we'll work on that, and we'll have a better answer for folks, and it will be basically anything that I haven't covered or whatever, in terms of timeline. I'm hopeful that next week I'll be able to have better understanding things, and maybe post an update on the town website. That would be like, hey, this is when our prospective budget and town report is going, we're thinking about coming out. It will give me a little bit of time next week to solidify things, and the next meetings and stuff, obviously. So we're set, I think, on the 21st, basically a week from today. Say 9 AM on the 21st, that'll be
Next time.
Next
next
Saturday,
Saturday,
yeah.
9 AM. That'll be warned in the same places, and it will be warned. Thank you, Sharon, for a special town meeting, because it will be a special. That I did fail to do that, so it's my fault. In addition to what's going to be happening on the 23rd, which will be your normal select board.
Okay, let us move on to public comment. We'll adjourn.
Oh,
Sorry.
we have other business.
Yeah, we have a bit more other business.
Okay.
So, this is a Better Roads grant from, Rick.
And that was Team Pine.
And it is a requested grant amount $15,001.76 for the local match of $37.50. Most of that to be done in time with the use of our machinery for a total of $18,752.20, estimated completion date of July 1st, 2026. He's basically doing ditch work, and he's connecting and repairing ditches, and he's doing pretty well in terms of getting it all done. So he just needs the signature of the select board to be able to apply for that grant. Thank you. The other business is also, I'd like it to appear on the minutes that, you, the select board, give me, the treasurer, Kyle Rowe, the ability to access all town accounts. the National Military has asked me to have that stated in select board meeting as part of the verification process.
Okay, we'll make a motion to do just that.
I will second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Just give me 1 second here.
That's silent.
And that's okay. Sure. No, that's it. Yeah.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I will second that.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. Thanks for everybody's input.